I wanted to ask you something.
Uh,
Will you come to my school formal?
I'm a bit old for it.
No.
Just wear a suit.
I don't think so.
I'd like to wear one.
Oh my God! My heart's beating so fast, I was like having a heart attack or something. Feel that?
And that was a clip from Babyteeth, and now I am joined by one of its stars, Mr. Ben Mendelsohn. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Ben.
Where do we find you at the moment?
I'm in LA as we speak, trapped in America.
For the benefit of those that are yet to experience Babyteeth, can you set it up for us and tell us where your character fits in as well?
Sure. So Babyteeth is a story of a young girl with, when we meet her, she has a terminal condition in remission, meaning she was very sick. Now she don't look too bad. She's 16. She meets a very charming junkie on a train platform and falls head over heels in love with him and brings him back to her parents, one of whom's a psychiatrist. That's her father. That's who I play. And one of whom is a concert pianist who has given up concert pianisting.
Pianism.
Thank you very much, Ben. See, it's always good to return to the mother country to get those the correct language. To devote her time to her daughter. So she brings this young, reckless junkie boy back home to her alert parents.
Yeah, although there's not a massive amount of resistance to him being in the house, there's some resistance. It's part of something that ran through the movie for me, a sense of just general discomfort in a good way, you know?
Yeah, I think it's got a very pleasant tension throughout. It really moves into its major keys right towards the end of the film. But the family setup, well, there's a lot of ways in which she's the adult, as it were, of the family. She's managing her parents to some degree, I think. And Essie Davis, who plays her mother, is one of the great power lifter actors of this
days.
or any
She's
time.
incredible.
She's an astounding actor. But we're really just the pillars for Mia and Moses, who are the two central love-struck characters.
Yeah, Eliza Scanlon and Toby Wallace. Toby I'd seen in a series on, I think on Netflix, called The Society, and he was electric in that series. I mean, he's head and shoulders above everybody.
Yeah, he manages to avoid stepping into all kinds of pitfalls, playing a young junkie. He does a great job.
I wanted to talk to you about that actually, because drugs are a sort of, they're kind of, it's weird because all four characters have a relationship with drugs in different ways.
Yep.
Your character's wife, Henry's wife, is on these prescription drugs, some of which may have been prescribed by your character, Henry.
Yep.
Henry, there's a reveal, I won't go into it, but we know that he's got an issue. And then, of course, Mia is taking drugs to deal with the illness. And like you say, Toby's character, Moses, is a junkie. So I was thinking, okay, so there's drugs revolving around this foursome. And you said something really interesting. You said Toby doesn't fall into the pitfalls of, playing a junkie. And by that, what I understand is it can be horrible when someone says, okay, in this scene, you're drunk. In this scene, you're high.
Yeah.
How did you find it? Those relationships within that foursome, like dealing with the differing levels of intoxication, I guess.
Yeah, that's supposed to be going on there.
Yeah.
I think Essie has one or two scenes where she's pretty pronounced.
Yeah.
And then there is, there's some stuff that I have to do, although, in terms of time doing it, it's pretty narrow. But, you're the first person to point that out. You're the first person and this film came out a good while ago in Australia. and it's been on the festival circuit. So I've done a few interviews for it, but you are the very first person to point out that relationship. And in fact, I hadn't thought about it until you said it. But you're absolutely right. They all have a relationship to these chemicals in one way or another. And what they're
Mm,
using them for is different in each case.
yeah.
And yet there is overlap. So that's a very interesting point, Ben. That's a very, very interesting point.
Well, thank you. And the other thing that fascinated me was the touching. And I know this sounds strange, but there's the physical relationships between the four of you. For me, it really reflected the fact that it's not an unloving household, even though that it sometimes feels cold. That it's not without love, but the love is strange. And there are moments like you and Toby wrestling, you and Essie in the first scene where we meet you in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
Toby and Eliza outside the on the train platform, right in the very first scene where he's touching
Yeah.
her hair. The touching's really strange in this movie, and I was never able to just sit back and relax, which I thought was great.
That just emerges through what I think is Rita's fantastic writing, and just the stuff with Shannon let sort of percolate up and allowed to be there. I mean, there was some stuff she would guide us away from, but
Mm.
not a lot. She pretty much just let it be what it was. When I read it, I thought it had the great Anglo slash Australian slash Kiwi,
Hmm.
virtues. They're the Anglosphere that I'm familiar with.
Sure.
And by that, I mean a certain toleration for stuffed upness.
Yeah.
There was a fantastic film that Gary Oldman made called Nil by Mouth.
Oh my
And it's the
gosh.
only film he ever directed, and it's a cracker. But I've often thought of this as kind of like a very gentle companion piece to that because in some ways the wisdom resides more in the female characters, and there's also a great love of the foible of this family. There is a great capacity for enduring each other's naffness, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's very important with what goes on. And it's my favorite film of mine that I've ever seen.
Really.
It is. Yeah, I love this film. I
That's
love it.
beautiful, man. Because for me, I got little echoes of Animal Kingdom. I know it's very different, but just that chewy grittiness to it, it just felt very physical. And so yeah, that's amazing to hear this. It's your favorite. And Nil by Mouth, I have to say, as an aside, how I always used to describe that film to my friends. It's the best film I'll never recommend to anybody because it's quite
I know what you
it's
mean.
quite
Yeah,
a tough
it
watch.
is a really tough film. Made an incredible impression on me as a younger actor.
Another theme that I found going through this, the use of music. I don't know if you're familiar with Shazamming, but I Shazammed my way through the second watch of
Did
this
you?
movie. Yeah, non-stop. When I watched it again, I just Shazammed because there are so many great songs in this that I just never heard before. Aside from that, there's also the diegetic music, like the music that the characters actually hear, also had this profound effect on me. And without giving anything away, there's a scene in which Essie Davis and Eliza Scanlon play the piano
Mm,
and the violin,
yeah.
respectively.
Yep.
And we just
Yep.
watch Henry's face. That's your character. We watch your face. And not in entirety, but a lot of it, we're watching your face. And I
Yeah.
wondered what you actually heard during that shot.
I heard the same thing you hear.
Right.
We had the music, we had the playback, and I watched them knowing what was going on. Yeah, it's that's one of my prouder moments. And
It really is. I'm glad you say it's one of your prouder moments because I was mesmerized by just the movement of your eyes in that moment. So much of the story was being told in your face. And it made me think back to the script because you talk about how the script moved you, but I can't imagine reading this script because there's these moments that how do you put them into words?
I think a lot of them evolved again. I don't think that necessarily, the nightclub scene,
Mm,
which is one of my favorite scenes, and this is about a young person for the first time in her life stepping out into the nightlife and sort of
mm,
discovering this magical world, or certainly to her it appears very magical. And that wasn't in the script, but they made this incredible kind of transcendent, really powerful, poignant moments. So a lot of the greatest moments, I think, are Shannon sort of extending things out, fortifying things, really deciding when she's going to make her points. And
Mm.
that's why the treasure of it is it's a beautiful and pleasant film. And then you get to the final act and it really does what it's meant to do. And
Yeah,
it becomes quite transcendent. I mean, look, yeah, it's a very emotional film, and I get
yeah.
emotional talking about it because I think it's powerful. I think it's really beautiful. I'm incredibly proud of it.
I've heard it called a family drama. I've heard it called a love story. I've heard it called a coming of age flick.
They're all a little light, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's all
yeah,
that's one of the challenges I think in descripting it and giving it its due, really, you know?
yeah. Yeah, it's because it's not I've I've seen it compared to the Fault in Their Stars and things like that, and it's not that. As much as this is a film around Eliza, and we'll talk about her in a moment. There are four different stories in here, and it really feels like there's generations of pain and experience in this film, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
the tiny glimpses you get into Moses's life with the
yeah,
Bichon Frise, and
yeah,
you can sense there's generations of issues before we meet Moses. It's
yep,
not just this
yep.
hot young junkie and this hot young girl who has cancer. It's not that kind of thing. I think really drew me in, and hopefully it will draw others in. To get onto Eliza, just go crazy on this girl because I just found her mesmerizing.
Eliza's a revelation. I mean, she's a revelation. She's one of those people that come along seemingly out of the blue. And very, very quickly, America picked up on her gifts, and she has a very good working life over here. But Eliza manages again to escape all pathos, all naffery. She's got the possibility of her life passing away at any given reasonable time frame. And so she has a sort of an attitude towards life that I think is much more vital.
As she says at one point, she says, "Stop wasting my time," and my heart
Yeah,
broke. She said it in such
yeah,
a matter-of-fact way. Stop
yeah,
wasting my time.
yeah, because it means something. Yeah, it
It
means
really
something when you're
does.
terminal. Yeah, she's an extraordinary actor, and we were very, very lucky to have her. Very lucky to have her. You've seen Babadook, obviously.
Yeah,
See that you watch that as an actor, and you just go, that is an impossible job to do.
yeah.
To have that level of emotional intensity. I mean, when you know what's involved in acting and performance, you just doff your hat. You can't do anything else but doff your hat.
What are you working on now? Can you make plans? I've no idea in this era anymore.
I'm going to do a film with Joe Wright. We're
Cool.
going to go and do his take on Cyrano. So I'm very much
Oh
looking
wow.
forward to that. With Peter Dinklage playing Cyrano.
Amazing.
So that will, all things considered, we'll start making that hopefully pretty soon.
We'll sit tight and keep everything crossed for Serrano then. Listen, Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for taking the time out.
Ben, it's a pleasure. Would that everyone were as good as an audience as you, but thank you very much.
Bye bye.